technical approach. Did any of these difficulties in the Seattle-Alaskan Way Tunnel, were they at all considered in the staff's evaluation of drug addicts?
No, they were not.
And why weren't they?
We tried to gain information, but without the specific information from those public agencies, it would be unfair for us to measure someone without having all of the facts. And proceeding on press reports would not be fair.
So you resorted to whisper campaign.
If you had the information, good or bad, would that have been germane to your evaluation of the firm partnership in the other two areas that you evaluated? Project
Absolutely.
management, is that yes? And
Yes.
the technical approach also? I mean, I find that as a member of an agency that's ready to award a multi-billion-dollar contract, that the applicant be responsive to your request for certain information, and that we not be shut out, and we not have to rely on newspaper accounts and other types of media reports, that they themselves offer that information to us. Is there a category for openness and transparency in the process here when we rate these companies? I don't think there is. He did not mention it, so that's kind of a rhetorical question. And I wish that they would be open and responsive and let us know what's going on, let you know what's going on. So you could tell me, no, Mr. Nigerian, that's nothing that they're responsible for. Or to tell me, yep, that's their goof, they should have had better project management or better oversight or whatever the case may be. So we're left here to surmise, and by failing to provide us that information, I mean, this is not a court of law, but there's a jury instruction to that effect that if there's better available evidence that can be provided that is not provided, you may make a presumption against the party. Trial lawyers, correct me if I'm wrong, I can't name the evidence, but I think at least as dealing with us, that we are entitled to a certain openness and honesty in these sort of inquiries, which are valid and germane and very pertinent to this very large decision that we're going to make. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Director Fasano.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple questions first. I have some comments in terms of the item of procurement, but the issue of the cost versus the forecast in terms of other cost reduction within the same transit corridor or same subregion, could that be explained to me again? I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. I think I'm okay with it, but I want to hear it again from staff.
The Measure R cost management process and policy requires that we identify trade-offs for cost increases of this nature. We have done so in this case. The Measure R commitment to the subway was $4,074 million over the life of all three segments to the VA hospital.
So is really the excess coming out of the next segment of the subway, is that really?
That's right. The amount that was remaining in our plan that had not been necessary for the subway using the older cost estimates was $788 million. That now needs to be reduced to $500 million in order to pay for this cost increase from the Measure R amount that was dedicated to the subway in the ordinance.
So with that understanding, the idea being that when that project gets packaged, it will have a smaller Measure R component in either Measure R2 funds or some other funds to be determined, I guess would be fair to say.
The subsequent segments of the project will have a smaller cushion within the Measure R program to rely on. Right now, they have a $788 million replacement project for those subregions that will be reduced from 788 to 500 million. Subsequent segments may also reduce that amount, and so their cushion is smaller as a result of the action we are recommending today.
Okay, others may have additional questions on that. I'm just going to go back to the issue of the procurement itself. I understand and recognize the concerns that have been voiced about how the contractor is spread among the various jobs. I see that as a valid concern. I see the valid concern about cost. I also see that from our perspective, I think we also send signals when we're probably not in as good a position to question the evaluation that has taken place.
Directors, Martha Wellborn, Countywide Planning. We're here to present item 25, the short-range transportation plan. This plan was ordered by the Planning and Programming Committee and approved by them. It is on the non-consent calendar because there was a motion added to it as well concerning an active transportation financial strategy, which was proposed. As you know, the short-range transportation plan is a 10-year snapshot of the long-range transportation plan. So it doesn't consider new projects or reprioritize the LRTP. It's just a window of time from 2014 to 2024. This time there has been a focus on safety.
I pause you for a moment. We've had requests to go straight to some of the public comments. Why don't we take those because some people are debating and then we'll hear more extensively. We have Councilmember Bob Blumenfield is here. Along with others who have been very patiently waiting. Good to see you. Thank you for coming. Welcome to the Metro Board. And I assume it's on item 76.
Mr. Mayor.
Good.
Really introduction.
The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, all board members, Mr. Corrigan for bringing this forward. You know, all of you here are, and Mr. Leahy, all of you are the ones who have made transit work in Los Angeles. And this item 76 is about taking transit in the West Valley to that next level. I'm the council member. I represent the West San Fernando Valley. Obviously, the orange line is much bigger than that, but I wanted to share with you my perspective from the West Valley, which is we are growing by leaps and bounds in the West Valley. We just signed the Warner Center 2035 specific plan, 40,000 new jobs coming into that little area alone, which currently has about 40,000 jobs. So, and all of this has been built as transit-oriented development, and our main transit line, our only rapid transit line is the orange line. So from our perspective in the West Valley, it is imperative that we look into the feasibility of increasing the capacity for the future. And that's things like grade separation. That's the gates, all of the different issues, all the things that you know how to do very well can be done on the orange line and can make a tremendous impact, not only in the West Valley, but in the entire city. Because this is about people moving, it's about jobs, it's about feeding the economic engine that is the West Valley for the entire region. So thank you very much. I have a letter which has more information, and I appreciate Corey and the others who really championed this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember. We appreciate you being here. Thank you for your patience. We'll make sure that gets submitted to the record. Councilmember Doug Kessler is here as well from Glendora City Council. I'm the board chair of the Foothill Gold Line. Again, we're taking 25 and 76 together where we have overlapping cards. I will call the board for one. If you do want to speak on both of them and take 2 minutes, please let me know. Otherwise, we'll have 1 minute. Welcome. Thank you for your patience. Good to see you.
You bet. Thank you. Good morning or afternoon. I'm Doug Tester, Chairman of the Gold Line Construction Authority. Your board is well aware of the concerns that the Gold Line Construction Authority has with the SRTP. More than half of the comments submitted from cities and groups on the SRTP were in favor and support the inclusion of the gold line. We are merely reiterating our request to be treated the same as all other major art projects that have insufficient funding. We appreciate your support, Mayor Garcetti, for a regional approach to our transportation projects. That strategy will go a long way in garnering support for the 2016 sales tax charge. Thank you, Mayor, for your leadership, and congratulations on the new challenge.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and the council member as well. Next we have Daniel Cedeno, representing State Senator Carol Wood. Followed by John Alford from Representative Ashen's office. Hi, good morning. Daniel Cedeno from State Senator Carol Liu, who sits on the Senate Transportation and Housing Committee. Also here to echo the previous council members' requests. So I have some language I'd like to share. On behalf of State Senator Carol Liu, we're here to reiterate our concerns that staff has once again left completion of the Foothill Gold Line to Claremont in this agency's planning. The Gold Line is a true success story for the San Gabriel Valley for providing to measure our funds. It's an important project to connect the residents and workers within our district to the rest of the county. We're very grateful for Mayor Garcia and Director Fasana's participation in the San Gabriel Valley Transportation event that took place a couple weeks ago. And we're hopeful with the changes being made to the plan that the record will be corrected in the final plan. And we in the San Gabriel Valley are very united in this. I know all of you are very aware of that. And as we look to a possible 2016 sales tax measure, we must work cooperatively on behalf of the regional system that connects all parts of the county. And for the San Gabriel Valley, that includes the Gold Line for us. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate your testimony today. John Alford is next. After that is Perla Hernandez from Congressman Grace McCall's office. Congressman.
Congressman Sherman asked that I read a brief statement on his behalf, or his words. Los Angeles is building a 21st century transit system. The San Fernando Valley deserves to be a part of it. The present Metro maintains or is currently constructing a total of 87 miles worth of light rail or subway, but of these 87 miles, just 1 mile of track lies in the San Fernando Valley. More concerning, however, is that none of the 37 miles of rail the Metro currently plans to build in the next decade are planned to be built in the San Fernando Valley. This is unacceptable. If the San Fernando Valley was its own city, it would be the 5th largest city in the United States and the only major city without a rail system. Every effort should be made to convert the Orange Line to light rail, which will increase capacity, efficiency, and open up opportunities for greater interconnectivity. The important next step will be to then build the subway through the Sepulveda Pass from the Valley to LAX with connection in West Los Angeles to the Purple Line. Together, these measures provide the best opportunity to draw large numbers of folks out of their cars and lessen traffic on the 101 and 405 freeways. It's long past time that the San Fernando Valley receives its fair share of commuter rail service, and I want to thank Councilmember Gregorian, Mayor Garcetti, Supervisors Antonovich and Yaroslavsky, Directors Fasana and Najarian, and offer my full support for this motion as an important step towards remediating.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for the comments. Perla Hernandez is next. After that will be Becky Chang from Congresswoman Judy Chu's office. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Good afternoon, Chairman and Board. I'm here on behalf of Congresswoman Napolitano. In her capacity as House Committee of Transportation and Infrastructure, she's actively working to support the Metro's priorities in Washington, D.C. She's strongly supporting the recent full funding grant agreement with the Department of Transportation for the regional connector and the West Side Subway extension. Congresswoman is committed to improving the transportation options for the whole county, including the area that represents the San Gabriel Valley. She asked that I come here today to express her concern that the draft short-range plan excluded the Foothill Gold Line project in its plans to accelerate the completion of Measure R transit program. The updated draft does not include any details to explain how new funding would be spent. She respectfully requests the board require staff to provide an updated list of future projects and a map to be included in the RTP that clearly identifies the projects to be funded. The Congresswoman supports the Foothill Line to Claremont being included on the list and looks forward to continuing her efforts on the region's behalf to help the needed funding to complete all those priorities, and we thank you.
Thank you, really appreciate it. Becky Chang is our next speaker. Next is Lee, sorry, is it Dolley? Dolley, excuse me, I'm sorry. From the city. My apologies, Lee. Good to see you. There you go. Yeah, don't worry.
Mayor and directors, we're here on a very simple issue. It's all about process. I should tell you, though, that I've been involved in this project from 1973, and I think nobody can beat me on that one. And I'm for the people, as I know most of you are, who wants to get this thing process. In the documents before you, there's no mention at all of the 710 law. There is mention of it in the documents circulated at the time of the public hearings. There's also, in March, a committee meeting at which the document, the draft document, included the 710 North. Our question is, what is the process for being removed from that? We would lastly say we would welcome more compensation if there's efficacy.
Good to see you. Joe Cano is our next speaker from Calcedon, to be followed by Rosa Perez.
Thank you, Board, for allowing me to speak. I want to say that 710 should be off this report and it should stay off because it's still going through the EIR process. To push that tunnel is to pervert the EIR process and to make it look like it's a predetermined project, which is illegal, okay? You have paid consultants that are trying to patch a gaping hole in the Titanic that is the Close the Gap Coalition, okay? This project is almost dead on arrival, but you have people trying to drag that horse over the finish line. So I want to say, keep it off this resolution. Let it go through the EIR process. If it's the best product, the product will sell itself. You don't need to hire lobbyists and consultants to try to convince the public.
Thank you. Rosa Perez, thank you, and thank you for the good work you guys are doing. Gloria V is next. Looks like there's a group, and I see some other cards, so Melissa Michelson as well. Go ahead, please.
Gloria Valladolid. I live in Alhambra, and I'm against the 710. Our council likes to say that the people in Alhambra are in favor because Measure R was passed. However, at that time, there was no tunnel idea. And in addition, Measure R is about public transportation, and I'm all in favor of that.
Thank you. Melissa, is that good for you?
Hi, we're here representing responsible Alhambrans against the 710. Like the numerous mayors and citizens who've submitted written comments to this agenda item in favor of light rail, we are for modern, green, and useful alternatives to the tired and outdated, dangerous, and polluting proposal that had been on the table to extend the 710 freeway with a toll freeway tunnel. We cannot understand why our own mayor has not put in his support for light rail in Alhambra. We have no metro there. I live in Alhambra, work in Pasadena, and play in downtown LA. I, like many others, would like to take light rail rather than my car, and I'm sure other Angelinos would like to do the same coming into Alhambra, but can't. As mentioned in our letter of July 2nd to our Alhambra City Council, which this board was also copied on, we are opposed to the 710 freeway tunnel, and we hope that the EIR will lend some clarity as to truly useful, safe, green, and modern alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a couple of people. You want to say what your name is, ma'am, just so I can make sure I have the right card?
I just want to say something very briefly.
I'm sorry, we need you to submit a card. I know that that's just the procedure we have to keep to it. I see you're opposed to the 710. Thank you. We'll let that
Trish Gossett.
Trish, okay, thank
I
you.
did submit a card.
Yes, we have your card. Thank you, Trish.
And I'm just here to ask you to please please support Mr. Najarian's action and keep the 710 off the short-range transportation plan. And I'm here to support the Alhambrans against the 710. And as we know, for many of us who have been against this 710 for a long time, the idea of light rail in this area is exciting, and I believe that it's actually a real win-win for everyone. The return on investment is almost guaranteed, as opposed to the gamble of the 710 and what that could represent to all of us taxpayers. And also to say that I thank you for some of the new members here on the board. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Ma'am, if you want to come forward, apparently some of the cards are hard to locate. We'll fill it out for you, but just go ahead. Yeah, we'll fill it out with you.
I would like to say I'm a resident from Alhambra, and I thought it would be faster for me to drive down here instead of going to South Pass to take the GO line. It was horrendous. I was on the 10 freeway for 45 minutes We definitely need light rail. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll make sure we get your name for the record as well. If you just hang out for a second. Carolyn Ramsey is next, and then Malcolm. But when we found your card, sir, it was the wrong number. You had 78 filled out, unfortunately, instead of 79. But we found it for you.
Hi, I'm
Or
Carolyn
76,
Ramsey.
I think. Well, it looks like 8, that's why. My apologies. Go ahead, start again, Ms. Ramsey.
That's okay. Hi, I'm Carolyn Ramsey. Most of you know me. I used to work for Councilmember Lavange, but I'm here today as an advocate, a long-time advocate for healthy, livable neighborhoods and good, well-designed mass transit. I support lifting the ban on the light rail for the Orange Line. Sherman Oaks is part of Councilmember Lavange's district, and a lot of the traffic from the valley funnels into Sherman Oaks because it's at the junction of the 101 and the 405. So to alleviate that traffic, we support turning the Orange Line into light rail. People are already embracing the Orange Line, so this is a way to move more people. Thank you, and thank you, Councilmember Krikorian, for initiating this. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mr. Hooker.
Okay, I wanted to talk about this because at the committee meeting last week, there was a kind of resistance to the idea of this light rail line through the valley, and saying that it didn't fit in with the long-range plans. But let's go back to the early 90s. You promised a subway that didn't stop at North Hollywood. It was supposed to be a subway all the way to Warner Center. And because of the fire and some overruns, it stops now at North Hollywood. So you owe some kind of rail line in the valley to people since the early 90s. And if you in 2016 would like to get something passed to extend your long-range plans, you might want to consider that if 2 million people in the valley think they've been neglected, you might not get the votes to do what you want to do.
Thank you. Our last speaker, Dr. Tom Williams.
I have 1 and 2.
Been on 3 items. We'll submit
I
those
spoke
to the
on
record.
3 and 4.
And we don't even have a card for you. And 56, you also spoke on
What items did I speak on?
items number 56, item number 3, and item number 4. Thank you. Dr. Williams.
How much time do you have?
You can have 2 minutes if you'd like, since you have 2 cards and 2 items.
Okay, for 25, why include the 710 North extension? Why, in fact, include the 710 expansion? Why include the high desert corridor? All 3 of these are going to be linked together, and eventually you're going to have a lawsuit regarding segmentation, because the high desert corridor won't work without the 710 North extension connecting the 710 South. So we're looking at it also through the California Freight Management Plan, and they're confused also as to what's going on in the LA Basin area regarding that. The clock is running that way. That's for 25. For 76, in the mid-1980s, we actually looked at the Orange Line as a rail, light rail, and it seemed to be appropriate. So, you know, it is part of the Sierra Club Transportation Committee's plan of Beyond Measure R. What's Beyond Measure R? Really connecting the entire spoke system of the radial transit system as a square, including the Tangerine Line, as we call it, or Kumquat, depending on what you want, and then a line from Duarte down to Long Beach to connect all of the ends of the green lines, gold lines, and the blue lines. So square the circle and get it done. As with the BRT, it's only an intermediate, but make sure that any funding for the BRT on the Orange Line also include funding for looking at how to convert it to real rail. Thank you.
Thank you. That'll close the public comments.
I didn't speak on 66.
Sorry, we have 3. I did not say 50. I said 56, sorry. Now, if we can go back to the staff report, please.
The staff report, I started on 25, I didn't get to 76, I'd like to do that as well, but I think to conclude 25, I think we're here probably because of the motion on an active transportation financial plan. Moving to item 76, this motion requests that we develop and fund feasibility studies including construction and engineering concepts, ridership and environmental estimates for 4 projects that are identified in the motion. I think our issue is how do we interpret what construction and engineering concepts means. If we take these words literally, these would be $1 million plus studies starting with alternatives analysis and proceeding from there, and they would be years in the making. However, if we understand that the intent is to study sort of a high-level 30,000-foot analysis, as was suggested at the Planning and Programming Committee, then we could incorporate these projects into the mobility matrix work that we're about to undertake that will then ultimately lead to an LRTP and ideally a ballot measure. Because in the mobility matrices, we are studying some of these same elements, it's just at a higher level in order to come out with cost estimates and ridership and constructability. So that is our issue. I mean, we fear that if we continue to have ad hoc proposals to do full engineering concepts, suddenly the LRTP is invalid and the mobility matrix work doesn't really make much sense. If, however, we can proceed with a higher level, it's structured in a way that will incorporate projects from around the county, and you can all vote on the projects of highest priority.
Thank you. Would you like to address the second item point as well, or did you include that just in this comments?
The second item, I was
76,
discussing.
yeah, no, I assume that's what you included.
Yeah, there were 2 feasibility studies, but for 4 projects, yeah.
Okay.
Same comment at all.
All right, directors, any comments? Mr. Corrin?
Chairman, I know time is short, so I'll keep this brief. 1 out of 5 of the county's residents live in the San Fernando Valley, and yet of 80 rail stations throughout the metro system, 2 are in the San Fernando Valley. It's very clear that to date, the valley has not benefited to the same degree as other areas in the investment in transit infrastructure. At the same time, the Orange Line has been such a phenomenal success that I think it is once and for all put to rest the unfair stereotypes that I've heard throughout my lifetime here in Los Angeles, that Valley residents are not interested in taking transit. Valley residents are too wedded to their cars. That is simply not the case. I think that the greatest upside potential that we have in the county for increasing ridership on this system happens to be in the San Fernando Valley. So the reason for initiating this motion, and I want to thank Directors Najarian, Fasana, Garcetti, Yaroslavsky, and Antonovich for joining me in this effort. The reason for this motion is to initiate the discussion about meeting those unmet needs in the San Fernando Valley, particularly with regard to increasing capacity on the Orange Line and extending its utility through connectivity. So one thing that this motion is not, is it is not prescriptive. It is not instructing staff to change its procedures or jump projects over other projects. It is not instructing staff to engage in multi-million-dollar studies. This is asking the CEO to report back at our next meeting with his recommendations for how we proceed with this dialogue to meet these needs. So I appreciate Director Kanabe's motion in committee. If it's additive to what I'm doing and not subtractive, then I consider it to be a friendly amendment. And I think that we should have this larger dialogue about the LRTP and expanding it. And processes that we should put in place for doing so. But I do not believe we can delay any further in preparing to meet the unmet needs of the San Fernando Valley in terms of transit infrastructure, particularly with regard to expanding capacity of the Orange Line. So that's the intention of this motion. It's not intended to initiate multi-million-dollar studies initially, but I certainly hope those will be forthcoming once we have an opportunity to demonstrate at the higher level that these are significant unmet needs and these are significant areas for potential enhancement of the entire countywide system.
Thank you. Next we have Director Marcus Thomas, and then John Fasana, Director Boyes, and Mr. Antonovich.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I maintain that our planning processes should be defined by three principles. They should be regional, rational, and they should be equitable. With that in mind, that I think that we should move forward. Item 25 and item 76. I won't belabor the point. I think the time has come for us to move, and I would so move, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is there a second on that? Okay, Mr. Fasana seconds that, and is the next speaker.
Yes, thank you. First I just want to note that, in terms of the study of the Orange Line upgrading, if appropriate, and also connecting to San Gabriel Valley, I applaud Director Krikorian for bringing that motion forward. I also want to give, looking back 10 or 12 years or 14 years, that right-of-way easily could have been fallow today and full of weeds if it hadn't been for foresight to convert it to a busway and to get around the restrictions on surface rail at the time. So Director Yaroslavsky certainly has kept that option open for us to consider today. I want to move over to Gold Line. Obviously, I'm extremely supportive of Gold Line moving forward. It is not in the SRTP in terms of funding. I see nothing in the SRTP that precludes Gold Line from being accelerated if funding becomes available and is identified through a ballot measure or other funding source. So there's nothing the way the SRTP is written that precludes that from happening. The 710 issue, I've heard the discussion on the 710, and I guess I will only say a few things, but then I have a few questions. The 710 was in the state legislation listed in Public Utilities Code 130550.4, Section C2 under the Measure R guidelines as an Interstate 710 North Gap Closure Tunnel with $780 million identified. I know that there is talk of going for a subsequent ballot measure. I think it would behoove us not to make any changes in terms of the characterization of the project until the environmental work is completed. I'm only asking at this point because frankly the environmental determination will guide where we go with whether it be a tunnel or any of the other three options that are going forward. Is there anything in the SRTP that precludes any of the four options or even the acceleration of those options? I also don't want to hear later that the environmental work is flawed and dated because we put this thing off definitively until after 2025 when technically it remains open due to a public-private partnership. So I'm looking for clarification in terms of where does the 710, whatever it is, stand via the SRTP.
I'll give you the overview. I think there's a very simple thing. The SRTP is a window from 2014 to 2024. And in our financial model, the 710 is 2025 or later. So it falls outside of the window. So it didn't fall off the map altogether. It's just we're taking the snapshot. If the snapshot were a year later, it would be on a different map. I don't know if David or Brad want to add to that in any way.
The only thing I would add is that in the SRTP on page 9, there's a map of the system that shows not only the short-range plan, but the long-range plan projects as well as the Tier 1 strategic projects. And so the SRTP is not shown as the 710 is not shown as an SRTP project for either transit or highway, but it is reflected as on the map on page 9 as part of the long-range plan. It's identified as to be determined to honor the fact that there is an environmental process moving forward, and that decision will be made through that process.
So there's nothing that would preclude if it moves through a public-private partnership approach subsequent to, and these are all ifs, that if it does move through the environmental process, if a route or mode were determined, that through public-private partnership, if funding was available, that could be accelerated.
That's correct.
And in that sense,
Any objection? If not, will be accepted as a friendly amendment. Next is Director O'Connor. I'm sorry. Would you like to keep going? Okay, go ahead. Let's go on to continue on 76. We're taking this together. If you can speak a little bit more in the microphone, just so we can hear you. Thank you.
Congratulations to Valley. Hopefully, legislative and predetermining corridor technology won't happen in Sacramento anymore. We'll be able to do it here. The first thing to develop and fund a feasibility study, it's not an insignificant thing. The Planning and Programming Committee staff was asked to estimate what such an effort, including all the items, might cost. We need to hear from staff as to what degree any work has been done on each of these elements and which of these items are currently anticipated in the SRTP and the LRTP. And I would suggest that we start just with item 1 in this motion, and the others are so expensive and so specific that probably will come further once we do the upgrades assistant. We're talking about a feasibility study that has no sort of funding at this point. Approval of the specific activities is clearly, and I'm sorry, jumping the project and ahead of other LRTP priorities. And I think we have to be very, very careful that we not do that. There can't be any other interpretation. There's no other reason to move forward with including construction and engineering concepts, ridership, environmental issues. We need to take baby steps, I think. I can't believe that if we say that we're going to build something and we don't have funding, that all of a sudden the funding will come by some kind of fiat. It just doesn't happen. So we have to stick with what we can pay for. On item B, number 2, it's already in the LRTP as a Tier 2 project. Number 1 is a completely new project, not in any LRTP document. Number 3, there's a body of work done through the countywide BRT master plan, and some work is being done through the legibility matrices. We do what we have here. We're jumping ahead of the LRTP. I would cross out number 4, number 5. It's a piecemeal addition of a project to the LRTP and not awaiting the results of mobility matrices that are currently under development and can add some of this information in a very general sense. So I think what I'm saying is if we be a little more general, we're going to come up with the specifics we want without directing the staff exactly how to do it. Some of these things are going to fall out. And I would encourage us not to be so specific, but to cross out the items under A, 2 through 6. Under B, I think 2 is already in the LRTP, so I would suggest that B is something that could be done once we go through the original process. And so that is my suggestion, is to change those things.
And do we have any idea what you just changed?
I do.
Well, maybe I can just make a clarification.
Okay.
Because the language of the motion provides that the board instructs the CEO to report back at the next board meeting with recommendations for doing A and B. We're not instructing staff of the MTA to begin initiating A and B. We're asking for the CEO to report back on recommendations. That's it. So at this point, there's no need to change any language in this because we're not ordering staff to go and engage in the processes that are described in A and B. We're asking for the CEO to report back. So any of those considerations can be included in the CEO's report back that we will get.
It doesn't cost $192 million.
Well, I don't, Mr. Leahy sometimes is loquacious, but I doubt that his report will cost $192 million.
Minus 300 days.
Well, I guess my concern is always, anytime I see something, I think, how much is it going to cost? First, number 2, is it funded? Well, we don't know how much it's going to cost. It's going to be a lot if we do all this. And number 2, it's not funded. I'm sorry that San Gabriel Valley was legislated not to have light rail, but that happened, that was not our issue.
San Fernando.
San Fernando, is that what I say? Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, San Fernando and San Gabriel. San Fernando Valley was not allowed to have light rail, that wasn't our doing. If we're going to do it, we have to plan for it, and we have to have funds for it, and that's, we talked about a great deal about bottoms up, but this isn't bottoms up when we look at projects. So I don't have a problem looking at it, I just don't want to have a lot of funds.
Mr. Chairman, point of order, there were significant, what appeared to be significant amendments, strikeouts and the like. I'm sure that the balance of the committee, the board, has those, such that we would know what we would be voting on.
Right. So, and just as a general point, colleagues, this won't be the first time this comes up. There are folks who want to get, and I agree with the logic of each one of these, the Gold Line out to Claremont, make the busway into a railway on the Orange Line, connected even to Burbank and the Gold Line, to get a 405 pass, subway, light rail, something, maybe even as far down as LAX, southeast and east side extension, which are already on the program. We may only have to be able to choose one or the other. They have an equally compelling case. So we will be developing a process, acknowledging that we cannot steal from existing projects on any of these, to look at what is the best strategy moving forward to find additional funds. That may be going to the voters. That may be looking at cap and trade funds as they expand from the state. That may be looking at existing federal sources. That may be looking at the changes in the diesel tax at the state level, et cetera. So I think we need not be afraid as people say those things, because everybody's advocating for their areas as they should be and the places that have been left behind. And certainly as chair, I will ensure that we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul. We have to, no pun intended, we haven't Peter on board yet, but we'll always pay Paul, but, not from Peter. But we will ensure that, I think there's a sense of urgency that we all feel out there with traffic, with what hasn't happened in the past, and we want to make sure that this is a solid planning year for putting that in place and identifying where funding may come from. We also are not interested in cannibalizing projects to get there, and so we will continue to have that be our overriding philosophy. I think we all agree on that on this board, and we'll be very careful to make sure that that continues to be the pathway forward. Now, Mr. Krikorian has clarified. Is that to your satisfaction, or do you still want to propose?
No, that's fine.
But I think our amendment, Director DuBois, I think our amendment, as a friendly amendment, clarified what our concern was about the leapfrog. So
sure.
Yeah. As a friendly amendment, I think we can work with.
Yeah, and I've accepted it as friendly.
Great. Okay. Super.
Thank you.
And we'll look, colleagues, to at some strategic point, maybe in a couple months meeting, maybe even just present on this and get some idea, get some traffic behind the scenes. What are some of the alternate sources of funding? What would about proposition look like, which I know we've talked here, and really look at that menu so we can do that eyes wide open and be realistic about what even the best case scenario, the dollars we're talking about that will be available are. Okay, with that, Director O'Connor.
And as chair, I am sure you are going to ensure that it's a transparent and inclusive process, and nobody has mentioned the South Bay. There is life south of LAX. There is life in the gateway cities, and there's a lot of life in the South Bay cities. And they've had projects that are sitting there waiting to be implemented. So, so some of the concern that caused us, me, at least to put the amendment forward is frankly, the number 5 is Director Du Bois noted, this is, and we get clarification, we're not saying put this in the long-range plan. I just want to make sure that that's understood. This is not a direction put it in the long-range plan. Because that updated long-range transportation plan, again, has to be transparent, has to include all the sub-regions. And I think, too, as we go forward, in the amendment, we talk about, and staff had noted, this may be what they will be updating and telling us more about, how this process might fold into the mobility matrix studies. But along those lines, just in general, tied to the amendment, I'd like to add that we have reports back to the Planning and Programming Committee, and say quarterly oral reports on the mobility matrices and outreach on the ballot measure initiative, so that we are articulating in that planning and in a public forum what's been done, what those issues are, who's participating, because we do want to have that global participation. Because frankly, this will not, none of our initiatives, if we're asking for more funding, will pass unless we can have everybody participating. And along that note too, I just want to add on, well, I'm totally behind the active transportation. And the active transportation we see from the young folks, it's emerging. And in areas where there's existing transit even, but some of the areas I noted in South LA, et cetera, we need to have improvements and look at what the safety factors are when somebody is a pedestrian and work on that. But also, I just want to end on saying, as we're doing the long-range transportation plan, most of the talk here has been about the new projects, that they're great. We want to get them going, and it's wonderful that people in Los Angeles County are yearning for more transit options. But we also have to remember, we need to be able to maintain them and operate them. So systems preservation is always going to be a large part of, as we move forward, developing our long-range transportation plan.